Once upon a time, in a bustling town, there was a salt merchant who provided for his family. He had two sons. The elder one was shy and quiet, while the younger was confident and lively. Because of his timid nature, the elder son was often seen as weak and was even taken advantage of, yet he never complained. The father was frequently frustrated with his eldest son's shyness and scolded him harshly, making him even more insecure. As he grew older, his lack of confidence affected his studies, causing him to struggle in exams due to anxiety and fear. Upon reaching adulthood, his father asked him to help with the business. Fearful of disappointing his father, he agreed but constantly made mistakes, which only fueled his father's anger. One day, while his father was away, a group of thieves came to the store, pretending that the father had ordered them to take all the salt to the city. Too afraid to question them, the son allowed them to take everything. When the father returned and saw the empty store, he was furious and expelled his son from the house. Heartbroken and humiliated, the young man wandered to the riverbank, feeling utterly useless and believing that life had lost all meaning. Standing by the river, the young man was consumed by despair. The shame of his father's scolding, the villagers' ridicule, and his own helplessness convinced him that he was a failure. He decided to end it all. Just as he was about to jump, a young passerby rushed over and pulled him back. Furious at being stopped, the young man shouted, "Why did you save me? I have no worth. I can't do anything right." The sage smiled kindly. "You have already discovered it. The problem was never your shyness, but your fear. When you act with confidence, no one dares to doubt you." Hearing this, the young man sighed and confessed, "I'm timid and weak. My father despises me for it. I have no education, and everyone thinks I'm a fool. I'm not worthy of living." The stranger smiled and said, "My teacher can help you. Come with me." At first, the young man refused, having lost all hope. But after much persuasion, he decided to follow the stranger to meet a renowned sage. He eventually arrived at a small monastery, where the sage sat meditating under a great tree. Upon seeing him, the young man broke down in tears, hoping this would be his last chance to change his life. The sage opened his eyes, gazing gently at the crying young man. "My child, why are you weeping?" Through choked sobs, the young man replied, "You are my last hope. If you cannot help me, I will end my life." Listening to his sorrowful story, the sage pondered for a moment and then said, "I have a solution for you, but before I reveal it, you must follow my instructions for 3 days. If you complete them, your life will change forever." Desperate yet eager for a chance, the young man agreed. On the first day, the sage instructed, "Go outside and talk to 10 strangers. Ask them about their lives and write down their answers." Nervous but determined, the young man tried. Some ignored him, while others were rude, but he persisted. By evening, he had spoken to all 10 and even made a few new acquaintances. For the first time, he felt proud of stepping out of his comfort zone. On the second day, the sage gave him a harder task. "Today, you must teach 10 children about the importance of water." The young man panicked, "But I have no education." "How can I teach?" The sage smiled. "The children don't know that. Just share what you do know." With trembling hands, the young man stood before the children and spoke. He kept it simple and left quickly afterward. When he returned, he admitted, "I was scared, but I did it." The sage nodded. "Then try again." The second time, he was more confident. By the end of the lesson, he realized his fear had greatly diminished. On the third day, the sage gave him the most difficult task. "Today, you must return home and apologize to your father." The young man shook his head in horror. "No, he will never forgive me. I can't face him." The sage's voice turned firm. "If you refuse, I cannot help you any further." The young man hesitated for a long time before finally gathering the courage to return home. When he saw his father, his legs trembled, but he bowed his head and said, "Father, I am sorry for disappointing you. I will strive to be worthy." His father looked at him, surprised by his change. Seeing his sincerity, the father sighed and said, "Very well, I will give you another chance." Upon returning to the sage, the young man eagerly asked, "Now, please tell me the secret to success." The stranger gently replied, "Life only comes once. If you keep living, you can overcome failure and find success. But if you give up now, you'll never know what you're truly capable of. Tears filled the young man's eyes in gratitude. From that day forward, he vowed never to let fear control him again. Years later, the once timid young man became a successful businessman, respected for his intelligence and confidence. No one saw him as a fool anymore, for he had learned the most important lesson of his life: confidence is not something you are born with, it is something you cultivate. He realized that the world perceives a person based on how they present themselves. Even if one feels nervous or afraid inside, acting with confidence will make others believe in their abilities. On the other hand, if one constantly fears and doubts themselves, others will see them as weak. He understood that the greatest limitations do not come from circumstances or abilities, but from fear within the mind. If one is brave enough to step out of their comfort zone and face fear little by little, confidence will grow. Looking back, he once thought he was a failure, but challenging himself had changed his life. Confidence does not come from never being afraid, it comes from acting despite fear. Believe in yourself, for when you step out of your comfort zone, you will discover strengths you never knew you had.